everyone. This is Crystal Swearingen, the host of Crystal Spot Podcast. Today, I have with us our guest, Clementine Moss. She is a founder and a drummer of Zepparella, and she has a busy solo career as a singer and songwriter. Not only does she work with other women collaborating to create music, she has a book called From Bonham to Buddha and Back, The Slow Enlightenment of a Hard Rock Drummer, where she uses her music career as metaphors for contemplative practice. Very excited to visit with her today. We're going to talk about meditation and mindfulness and all the things that we always are striving to do at Crystal Spot Mag. So thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me, Crystal.
So tell us a little bit. Obviously, we want to know about the meditation and mindfulness, but I want to know about this rock band. Like,
Yeah.
how did this start?
I know.
That's
I
the
know.
fun thing.
Yeah, the two things don't seem to go together very well. Yeah, I've been a hard rock drummer for 30 years, and
Oh,
I
wow.
found drumming in my 20s. So I started really late in life, deciding to be a musician.
Mm-hmm.
And right around the time I started playing drums, I went to my first 10-day meditation retreat. And so I felt in my life that I had these two different paths, right? I was this hard rock drummer by night and this meditator by day. And over the course of my life, I've really realized how much both things just kind of are the same, like I'm on the same path. And
Yeah,
I find that same stillness that I find on the meditation mat, I find it when I'm sitting behind the drum kit at a rock show.
I love
Which,
that.
yeah, which is kind of why I wrote the book, because I wanted to, when we talk about meditation, we talk about contemplative practice, we tend to think of kind of pulling back from the world,
Mm-hmm.
and over time, I've really seen that it actually, those things are really a tool to become more a part of the world. And nothing is more kind of in your face, living than, traveling with a rock band. So, so I thought it was a good metaphor for how do we kind of keep in that still, peaceful place, even though our life is chaotic. Yeah.
I love that. And music, you're basically creating art.
Mm.
You're creating art with the meditation and mindfulness as well as with the drumming. And I can definitely see the correlation between the beat of the drum and
Yeah,
getting into that space. What
right.
are some things that you have learned in your journey of doing both of these things and being pretty, successful at both of those and working with other people?
Right. Well, when we sit in meditation, what we're looking at is we're looking at, I've done Vipassana or insight meditation for a long
Mhm.
time. And that's really observing the sensations in the body or the breath, observing a thing, right? And noticing all of the ways that our mind keeps trying for that thing to be different, right? So if
Mm,
I'm looking at sensation on my body and my ear is itchy, if I just sit and observe the itch and then I'm able to move my awareness on and come back to the ear later, maybe it won't be itchy. Maybe the sensation will be changed. Maybe it'll feel cool or some other kind of thing. So if I don't react to the itch and I just observe, what I can see is all of the ways, all the pull in my mind to think about times when it wasn't itchy. Think about
mm,
the ways that I can imagine me wanting to feel different. And that's a really tiny example of a way that we can look at what's happening in the here and now and observe the ways that we're constantly trying to change it,
mhm.
constantly wanting it to be different, right? So now if I'm sitting on the drum kit and I'm able to observe all of the ways I want things to be different, all of the anticipation of messing up, like drum fill is coming up, and I always, that's a tricky one for me. And I start to anticipate all the ways that it's going to go wrong. Or I wish that I was, I'm tired and I just wish that I wasn't where I am at the moment. Or I wish that there were more people at the show, or all of these other ways that I wish it to be different, right? So I can use what I learn sitting quietly in meditation, watching sensation or watching my breath. I can learn all those lessons I learn about my internal life, about the way that I'm always striving to not be in the moment, to not just accept what's here. Then it makes for a much more peaceful journey through my life, right? And when I'm working with other people, then what I can see is, I can watch. So basically, I'm watching my reactions. So then if I'm interacting, say, with, a promoter who is giving me a hard time, I can watch, all of my frustration, all of my anger, all of my kind of grumpiness kind of rise up. But if I react from that energy, I'm going to create even more problem, right? But if I am able to see all that stuff rise in me and stay in that centered place, and kind of move from a kind of non-reactive place, then I feel like, personal relationships and professional relationships can be a lot easier. I think a lot of the time our defensiveness, and our reactivity is what really can kind of have things make things more difficult than maybe they need to be. Yeah.
You're the exact person I need to speak to today. Everything you said, I think a lot of us struggle with. Just like even when you mentioned the meditation and the ear itching, I think back whenever I try to get clear and be in the moment, how my body, I won't say rejects it. I just have it's like, oh, you need to move this, or you have to go to the ladies' room, or I need to go. But
Yeah.
we are constantly striving to make it different than what it is and
Mm-hmm.
finding ways and cues. I think that is very enlightening. I had not heard that example before. And even though you said it was a simple example, I feel like it was a very important example. So
Mm.
you have an active healing practice. And for those who are listening, she's certified contemplative psychotherapy and conflict resolution. And I'm going to say to pronounce it the right way, but
Vipassana.
Vipassana. There you
Vipassana.
go. Meditator for over 30 years, and your practice spans many traditions. For someone who is new, who's looking to get into meditation and contemplative practice, what are some steps that people could get started just to
Mm-hmm.
learn how to focus their energy on the now?
Yeah. That's a great question. So, first of all, I think the first step is to just let go of what you think it's supposed to be. We put so much pressure on ourselves to do things right, and
Mm-hmm.
really, 5 minutes a day of sitting quietly is all that's required. You know, especially at the beginning when you're really learning how to just sit quietly. As you said, most people sit down and we're so used to our nervous system being so active, right? Because we have so much stuff coming at us all the
Mm-hmm.
time. Our minds are so active that to sit down, it's almost like we want to crawl out of our skin. Um, and
Yes.
so one thing to recognize is that the breath is a great gift, a great tool in meditation, because when we take a nice deep breath into our belly, what it does is it tells our physical body that we're getting enough oxygen to our lungs, to our heart, to our brain, and the nervous system calms down. And so if we just take a nice deep breath into the belly and even hold it for, maybe there's a breath work where you breathe in for 5, hold it for 5, and breathe all the way out. And just keep doing that. You'll notice that your whole body begins to kind of unhinge a little bit or relax a little bit. And then if you were to just watch your breath coming in and out, even if you were to count the breath, can be very relaxing. Sit for 5 minutes, just breathing deeply and just counting all of your breath. And notice how long you can do that until your mind starts to wander,
Yeah.
right? And when your mind wanders, rather than getting frustrated or angry at yourself, or I can't do this, or this is a waste of time, all those thoughts, just observe those thoughts and gently bring your attention back to your breath and start counting again. And then when the bell goes off, that's it. All you've done is you've started to kind of just show yourself that just sitting quietly is all that's necessary. And from there are all kinds of meditation retreats. There are meditation apps where you can sit and listen to guided meditations. Anything that feels like it really resonates for you is the way to do it. And know that everybody's different. Some people,
Mhm.
really like the kind of, pinpointed attention, and some people like to be taken on a journey, when they're in meditation. And you get to choose. Yeah.
I think, yeah, 5 minutes. Wow. I think of I have an Apple Watch, which a lot of people do now. And
Uh-huh.
it reminds me because I think my blood pressure, it says, hey, take a minute and be mindful. And
Yeah.
so many times we just ignore it and ignore it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
finding 5 minutes sounds really good. Do you have an app? Because your voice is so sweet. Like I'm trying to match your
Oh.
energy. I could listen to this. Can you make some recordings that I can listen to at
Actually, I
night?
do have quite a few, and I'll send you a Dropbox
Oh,
of. For a while, I had a Patreon where I was recording 10-minute meditations.
oh,
Like
I could
a
see that.
meditation for, when you don't want to meditate. Meditations for when you're angry, meditations for when you're sad, or,
I love it. You
um,
have a very calming voice. So that feels like such a conflict when I think of this rock band
yeah.
that you're in. So
Yeah.
I want to bring back to something you said earlier. You started playing the drums later, kind of later in life.
Hmm.
I know we have a lot of people who read and we interview and we talk to about the magazine who are making these changes that may seem wild and scary and crazy. I will say I bought a guitar 2 years ago because I was going to take lessons, but I refused to cut my nails down to where they needed
Oh.
to be. So this year I have cut them short. So maybe I'll start playing. I don't know. You're inspiring me. But
There
how
you
did you
go.
decide to bring music into your life and be a part of this rock band? Like, what
Yeah.
was the beginning of that?
Right. Well, first of all, maybe you should play slide guitar, because slide guitar, you could probably have longer nails, right? Because you got
Oh,
the
I'll
slide
look
on, and
into
yeah, right.
that. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I started when I saw myself as a writer. Yeah, I went to
Mm,
school for writing, and I was living in New York City, and I just felt like I just hadn't lived a life to write about. And
mm,
I started to get really frustrated and kind of was spinning around a little bit. And I feel fortunate because, and I think it's just because I had kind of a privileged upbringing, in that I was told that I could do whatever I wanted to do. I
yeah.
didn't have a lot of pressure on me to
Hmm.
to have a particular kind of life. And so I thought, I'd really like to work and travel somehow. So maybe maybe music, maybe I could be a musician. And it didn't really even feel like a problem that I didn't play an instrument yet.
You're like, that will come next.
Yeah.
The
That was
commitment comes first. Yeah.
you're right. And it was kind of in the back of my head, but then I took a drum lesson. I had musicians around me. I
Hmm.
think that's where I got inspired. And then I took a drum lesson, and drums just captured me. It was
Oh,
just my instrument. Yeah.
I
Um,
can see the correlation between the sounds and the rhythm of the movement of it and meditation. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, it's really connected. Yeah. And when people are looking to do new things, it can be really scary. And realizing that a lot of our idea of our identity, of who we
Mm,
are, that doesn't have to be a small thing. It can be very wide ranging,
yeah.
and I think a lot of us sell ourselves short because we have so many interests, and yet we were told that we had to be one thing. When I
Yeah.
was a kid, it's kind of like when I was a kid, before MTV, right? And
Hmm.
before videos, it was like you were either, you liked rock and roll or you liked country. Like you couldn't like both. You liked this kind of music, or you liked hard rock, or you liked heavy metal, and you couldn't like both. It was like very specific. And
Yes.
now in this day and age, I think that kids don't feel that way at all. You get to like
No.
whatever you want,
You can
So
like a plethora of music. And there's so
Yeah,
many elements of all of it now the musicians are combining together,
that's
which I
right.
really, really love. I was listening to a song, this random thought, but Fast Cars. I think Luke Combs sings this new, and I remember because I'm aging myself, Tracy Chapman's original. I was like, how is this? How do I know the words to this song?
Yeah, that's
But
great.
she took a, kind of a soulful pop. I won't say pop, but a soulful song from Tracy Chapman, and now it's a country song that's
Right.
considered pop. So genres are blending together,
That's
and I
right.
kind of I love that, and I love what you were saying that you don't have to be this thing. I always hear that. Well, you're a master of all, or was it jack of all trades, but a master of none?
Right.
Well, who's to say that my goal is mastery and everything?
That's right.
Sometimes I just want to explore.
Yeah, and sometimes when you like, I've taken in my life when I feel bored, I'll take a lesson. Even if I don't
Mm.
think, like right now, I'm learning how to play tabla, like the Indian
Oh,
drum, and I'm so terrible at it. Like it's really just outside of my, I don't know that
but you're doing
music, and
it.
I'm doing it, and yet it informs what I do. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like there are little lessons I learn along the way about myself while I'm doing that I can apply to the thing that I'm really spending my time with. Yeah.
I love that. And you just have to be open to it.
That's
And it
right.
sounds like, you were raised in the right mindset that you can do anything. And so many people have been raised that you have to take this path. And
Mhm.
I appreciate you sharing that because I think people will hear that and say, okay, well, maybe I don't have to go just down this road. I
Right.
can make some. Are you now you're based in California, correct now?
That's right. San Francisco.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So where do you play? If people want to follow you, where can they find you online?
Yeah,
And
yeah. I'm
share
yeah, we fly all over the place. We'll be in
wonderful.
Colorado this next weekend, and then we'll be in Pennsylvania and New York the next weekend.
Excellent.
So yeah, we're all over the place. Yeah.
All right. I do want to I was going to ask you when I was just looking at some of the questions that you provide, and I just want to make sure I hit a couple of things like that because I'm so excited about all the variety of things that you do. But one of the things that I saw was how do you deal with self-judgment and the judgment of the listeners and the audience? And second part of that is how is it collaborating with other women in your band?
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. Well, first of all, I have to say that I really think, I grew up in Southern California and I developed a very,
Okay.
very negative um, internal
Mm.
voice that was very self-attacking. Whenever anything in my life went wrong, it was because of the way I looked, because of the
Yeah.
way I was, right? And when I started meditating and I started to be able to tune in to my internal voice, and I realized that I had this incredible negative voice that I was listening to
Yeah.
all the time, I feel like that really propelled my contemplative, my spiritual practice. I wanted to understand that. I wanted to understand what it was doing there, what it was, and how I could get rid of it. And why did I
Yeah.
believe that ultimately I was just bad? That's what it was telling me, right? That I wasn't worthy of being loved or that kind of thing. And I still don't really understand where all of that comes from, but I do know
Mhm.
that we're cultural creatures and we absorb a lot. And I think especially for women in this culture, we have a lot of outside judgment that's
Yeah.
coming at us. And when we're young women, I think we really internalize that and it stays with us for a long time. So, I've done a ton of work about trying to understand that voice. And one tool maybe I can offer is that I started to ask what it was there for, right? Why it was it, and I realized it was trying to help me.
Mm.
It was trying to keep me safe. It was trying to keep me, it was like it was judging me so I would be immune to the judgment of others, or I
Oh,
would not be able to, I would be able to handle it when other people judged me. It was like I've always said nobody can say anything about me that I haven't said worse 1,000
Mm,
times about myself, and so I felt like it was almost like a buffer between me and the world, like that, you can say anything bad about me, but I already know that you don't even know how terrible it actually is, right? And so when I looked at that and I realized that that voice is actually just trying to protect me. And what do I need protection from? I need protection from people saying, hurting me. Well,
mhm.
what part of me is never hurt? What part of me can move through the world and know that I'm okay no matter what anybody says, that actually I do have value, and that if I'm
Yeah.
in my integrity and I really follow my heart, follow my compassion, follow the kind of person that I really do want to be in the world, then that voice quiets down a little bit. And I started to make more peace with that voice. It's a long process. That voice still comes up, definitely, because it's an old pattern. Um, but I really realized that, yeah, that's it. When I realized that that part of me is actually trying to help me, even though it's telling me terrible
Mm,
things, it's actually trying to help me. Then I was able to really, learn how to really love the parts of me that, were I had felt were unlovable. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
You gave
So,
yourself permission
yeah, I gave myself
to
permission. Yeah,
silence that voice.
right.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
part of the second part of that question was working with the women that you're working with in your band. And like you said, as young women, a lot of us have those voices and that feeling of judgment. And now there's three of you guys
Yeah.
traveling the country. And what have you learned and what tools, obviously from you do conflict resolution, you're
Hmm.
very in tune with how you feel and expressing that in communication. What are some tools that you've learned in working with other women and collaborating in this
Yeah,
space?
yeah. Well, so my guitarist I've worked with now for almost 22 years, Gretchen Men, and my singer I've worked with for, over 10 years. And Gretchen and I approach our friendship, our collaboration, kind of immediately. We said, okay, what is good for you is good for
Mhm.
me. And what my job is to elevate you in the every way that I can. And your success becomes my success. And so in that way, it cut off any feeling of, if something wonderful happens in her career or she goes off and she makes a record, I don't feel a sense of jealousy, because any positive that comes
Yeah.
to her comes to me, right? Because of our
Yes.
association. And so at every point, what I want is the best for her. And so when we come into conflict, because in a
Mhm.
creative project, you're always coming
You do.
into, there's
Yes.
little things that come up. I can speak freely to her because she knows that my goal is ultimately for us both to succeed. I'm not
Mm.
trying to pull her down. I'm trying to lift her up. So if I have to tell her a difficult thing, like, hey, I don't like the way that you're playing that, or that doesn't sound right, or whatever it is, that's a wrong note or whatever, which doesn't happen very often, but that doesn't sound right. Maybe we could do that better. It's from a feeling, she has the feeling that I'm not trying to beat her down. I'm trying to improve the situation, and that I
Mhm.
have her back, even though what I'm saying is kind of difficult. So
Yeah.
I guess that's the way I would say it.
I think that's a great beginning. Like you said, we started with this conversation
Mm-hmm.
and communication is key of I'm always going to be supportive to you. And we may have to navigate and make some adjustments, but they're all from love, a loving and moving forward place.
That's
Well,
right.
thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insight and your amazing voice. I'm going to listen to this multiple times
Aw,
because
thank you,
it's
Crystal.
very calming. Where can people find you online? What's your Instagram, social media, website, all the good things?
Yeah, thank you. So my website is clemthegreat.com, which is a name that I chose quite a long time ago. So clemthegreat.com, everything is there. My book is on Amazon, and also I read it on Audible. So you can listen to the audiobook.
Definitely. That's what you should do, everyone. Love that.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I'm so glad we were able to connect, and I thank you for sharing your insight and your expertise with our audience today. And everyone, make sure you go on the website, check out her book, From Bonham to Buddha and Back, The Slow Enlightenment of the Hard Rock Drummer. You can get it on Amazon, or if you go on her website, clemthegreat.com, you can find it there as well. Thanks so much for being our guest today.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you.
Sounds good.